Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Living Power Show. This is a show where we discuss questions from your side, and today we are joined by a very special guest, ladies and gentlemen. Before we go there, I am your host, none other than Thendo, Ravhengani, and our guest here is the founder and director of Living Power. Ladies and gentlemen, we fought and sought far and wide for this man, and we finally got him. Thank you. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I hear, from the grapevine that you have a new book, sir.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Thriving Through Trials. It's a newly printed out book, very new, very published, and I hear they're able to receive it, via courier. They can download it, PDF things.
Yes.
I already got myself a copy and everything. Luckily, because I know the author, I got mine signed and everything. It's too bad you guys can't get that. I'm sorry. Privileges. This is a very great book about, thriving through trials. If you don't believe me, I'll just read an extract from the president of the TOC, Pastor Shongwe, and it says, "This book does not only state the true facts about trials, but it also articulates apt suggestions on how to embrace them, so that you can come out stronger, braver, and more courageous. The strategies to cope with the trials in this book are simple, practical, and they can be applied in everyday life situations. As you delve into this book, may God remind you that every setback you may encounter along the way, God has already weighed it and balanced it, and He knows that you can bear it. May God bless you, and I hope you really decide to buy this book. I am not being paid to promote this, so don't think this is how I'm going to get food tonight. Yes, this is truly a great book.
They can find it on our website.
They can find it on the website. The website has been revamped. They've been working long and hard, and I think we should really, do this. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, getting back to the show, question and answers. So are you ready?
I am ready.
All right.
Always ready. Yes.
Question 1. Dealing with character differences in a marriage/relationship. How do you deal with that situation?
I suppose in life we can say that there are no two people who are the same. We are all unique, and that's why our biometrics are different, fingerprints. God does not create duplicates.
Yep.
He creates unique individuals that differ from the other person. Now, it is important for us to realize that there are two important things that are needed in a relationship for it to work. It is compatibility and the ability to complement one another.
Ooh, come on, sir.
I can spice it more.
Yeah.
The Bible says it is not good for a man to be alone. I'll create for him a helper comparable.
Yeah.
That means it's a companion, comparable, in order to complement. At the end, it must be somebody who is, in a way, gets them closer to one another. Yeah. So as we look into the question of compatibility and complementing, compatibility means generally you're going towards the same direction. You're going to the same direction. So you're going to the same direction. You agree on the basic issues of life, that maybe you're a Christian, or you are believe in ancestral worship, or whatever it is, but you're compatible, you're on the same journey. And when you read in Amos 3 verse 3, it says, can the two walk together unless they are agreed? Yeah. But in that journey, you've got different people who are walking in the same journey. And their character differences helps them to complement one another. Yeah. So in reality, you don't want two people who are the same. So yes, they must be going towards the same direction, but they must complement one another. That means one is almost like a key, and the other one is a lock. The key is different from the lock, but the two of them complement each other.
Yeah.
Again, you can look at an example like if you're going to have a braai, you can look at braai meat with pap.
Yeah.
They're different, but they work together.
But they complement.
They complement each other. Macaroni and cheese.
Yeah. Mac and cheese.
Exactly.
Speaking my language. Speaking my language.
So you can go on and on that. So whilst they're different, they complement each other. So that is what is important. So character differences can be such things that helps you to complement each other. But if you are not complementing, the differences makes you to be diverse. You can't lock it, because this is what you're supposed to have. You can't have these fingers like this, because then they will be clashing. But if you give a little bit movement, it helps them to hold on to each other. So they complement one another. So it's current differences is good. They must be different, but they must be complementing of each other. When the other one is weak, the other one is strong. And we see this also in magnetic poles, that the North Pole attracts the South Pole of the magnet. And it is important for us to realize that as a North Pole, I need a South Pole. So the fact that the other one is different from me does not mean we cannot go together.
Yeah.
In fact, that's what attracts people. But oftentimes, so a person who is organized will be attracted to a person who is disorganized. The one who plans in advance will be attracted to one who does things as they happen.
The one who leaves the clothes all around the room.
There you go.
The one who likes to,
exactly.
organize the things.
Yeah, and those are the ones that attract each other. The only problem is when they are already in marriage or in a relationship, then the one who is organized wants to say, why are you not organized? Why are you not like me? No, I'm here to compliment you. I'm here because I'm different from you. And it is the differences that attracts us to one another.
That is quite some bars, sir. Interesting. Thank you.
Sure.
The next question is early marriage a cause of unhappiness in a marriage? If you marry immediately after finishing school without experiencing different lives?
That's an interesting question. In the US, if we just go only by age, in the US they have found that the highest success in marriage, based on what they had in terms of the years difference, was when a man was around 29 and a woman was around 28. It's some of the things that I'm also researching, trying to get even local information where possible for my next book, which is The Journey to Marriage. So that's what they found. They found that age to be the most successful, because as you can see today, most people are getting married in the early 30s. In South Africa, the Stats SA is telling us that the average marriage age is about 32. Because people are no longer like before. Before, people used to get married in the early 20s. Then we moved on to the mid 20s. Then the late 20s. Now people have moved to the early 30s because most people are waiting for finishing their careers and so on and so on. So coming back to the question, an early marriage, one of the things which is key is maturity.
Yeah.
So, and maturity hits people at a different ages and at different times. So, instead of just saying early marriage, there are people who mature early enough and they enter into marriage being mature, even though they're early, then their marriages will succeed. And there are others who mature later. So, someone is still... he's older in years, but he still wants to do childish things. I had a couple coming to see me some time ago, and they were cohabiting as a couple. They were not church people; they were cohabiting, and in their lifestyle, they thought that was acceptable. And then, but the guy who was there was 38 years old, and but this guy was still going clubbing every night, coming back in the early hours of the morning. He had that lifestyle of, very much youngish, not matured lifestyle. And the question I had for him, he didn't see anything wrong with that lifestyle, even though he was 38 years old. And the question I had for him was, man, when do you plan to grow up?
Sure.
You know, when you have decided to grow up, then you can come back to me and talk about marriage and preparation for marriage. When you have decided that you're going to grow up.
Yeah.
So it is to do with maturity, not necessarily whether you're getting married early or not. As long as you're matured. And also, there's something that happens with marriage. You need to be at a stage, at a time, when you are willing to forsake all and to hold on to this person. So if you think like, well, there still has many things for me to be entertaining, to be enjoying and whatever, you're not ready to forsake all, whether it's friends and relatives and everything else, then marriage will not work. Even if it is later in years, but it is that maturity that is important.
You know, linking to the whole thing, especially, it's not a myth, because a lot of my generation is more like, you know, I'll get married later when I'm 30, you know, like, because I still want to live my life, you know. 20s is, you're only 21, you know, and you just want to live your golden years, you know.
Yeah.
Instead of like, you know, in terms of that, it's like they go out and, you know, find themselves, because, you know, I've heard very much situations where people get married early, but they didn't find themselves, so they don't know who they truly are in the marriage, and, you know, certain situations like that. So it's a tough situation in terms of, you know, getting married early, in the sense that you're mature, but you don't know who you are, and you like have struggle finding yourself once you're in a union, because now you're one.
Yeah.
And so it's a very hectic situation, and it's true that a lot of the generation now is getting, you know, married later.
Because their lifestyle involves the lack of the fear of God. So they mostly move into a relationship, they get into a relationship, and many of them, they cohabit, and they still say, no, I'm not ready for marriage. You know, but technically, you are living like a married person, but he says, I'm not ready for a commitment of marriage. You know, I had a couple coming to see me at the time, and in the midst of the discussions that they've had after they've stayed with each other for 5 years, was that we're not sure about getting married. Yeah, but you know, but they've got a child together, and so the definition of marriage has changed in the way that, particularly in the world view, that you can live a lifestyle of married people when you're not married, which is a bit of a challenge for Christians, because that kind of lifestyle is not acceptable for Christianity. In the world today, sleeping with your boyfriend or a girlfriend is not a problem.
Yeah.
So, and in fact, you see the double standards where the world condemns somebody who has got a relationship with a boyfriend and they cheat with somebody else, because in their own view, it's okay to sleep together with your boyfriend or girlfriend, but if you start sleeping with somebody else, then, you know, that's when you're doing something wrong. So that's the kind of messed up morality that we find ourselves in.
Just on that point, do you mind defining, especially the difference between, in terms of dating and cohabiting and, you know, marriage? Like, do you think there's a difference there?
Marriage is a commitment, and it's a commitment for life. So the maintenance of marriage is that I'm entering here, and I'm going to love you, and I'm going to cherish you, and nothing will separate us until death do us part. So that's a commitment. It's a commitment that merges our emotional happiness, it merges our social happiness, our sexual happiness, it merges our economic life, our financial abilities. It's a union that merges everything about us into one. And that commitment is the foundation for a lasting relationship between the two people, right? Whereas cohabiting, on the other hand, is two people who says we can get and give each others the benefits of marriage without entering into that commitment. We don't want to commit to one another. We don't want to tell one another that we are there for you forever. But we are going to go and steal those benefits. So you can almost imagine that mentality is, it's almost like being unfair to yourself, particularly as a woman. I will never forget, many years ago, when I was working for one bank, and I had a woman who worked for me under me. She was a white woman. And she came to me back then, and it was in those days, this is in the 90s. It was not as, cohabiting was not as common among black people as it is now. But, you know, she was a white woman and she was cohabiting. So she says to me, I have been cohabiting with this guy for 5 years. And she says, this was from the time when I was 28 or 29 to about 34. She says, those were my prime years for marriage. And after 5 years, he says he's not interested in getting married. She says, I've wasted those years where many other guys could have made a commitment for life. But I was with this guy who, after that period, feels that he doesn't want to make a commitment with me.
Sure, that's hectic. So, you know, marriage is a thing of committing, you know. And, you know, the thing of proposing for marriage, especially for people who haven't cohabited, in a sense, it's like showing the person that you're ready to take on this journey of committing to this person and so forth. And it's a risk that, you know, people are willing to take. And obviously, you know, with many of the tools that Living Power has, you can make it work. Yes. Next question. Thank you. We all have weaknesses and shortcomings. Which one is good enough to call it quits?
That's an interesting question. I suppose there are things that can be seen to be acceptable. When I talk to young people about the issues of marriage and relationships, I said, as a person, you need to have values or principles that are in 3 categories. The first one are deal breakers. This one is that you either have to have it, and if you don't have it, then the deal is off. So you can say somebody who drinks is a deal breaker. I'm not going to go out with somebody who drinks. You can say somebody who smokes is a deal breaker. Interesting enough, there was a couple that they were about to get married, but somebody found out, the other one realized that the other one was smoking and says it's off. Literally, that is off.
Hectic.
And I will get back to you if you stop smoking. And I'm glad to report that eventually the guy did stop.
Really?
And they got back together and they got married. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
So you have deal breakers. It can be that among your deal breakers can be that we need to be of the same faith. We need to believe in the same thing. A deal breaker can be things like if you suggest premarital sex or you are interested in that lifestyle, it's a deal breaker. So number one, you need, of the 3, one is deal breakers. You must have those principles. And those are the ones that you yourself says, this one is off. Those deal breakers can be informed by your spirituality, can be informed by just how you were raised up, that this kind of things is not acceptable. Right. Number 2, these are values that you think they're important. They're not really deal breakers, but they are important. You value more. If we're going to do a score sheet for you, if you have these points, then you know you will score higher in my heart. You'll mean more to me. So this can be things like I want somebody who has a job, somebody who has certain qualifications or whatever things that they have, and so on. So those are the important issues. Deal breakers, important issues. Number 3 are nice to have. These are values that are nice to have. So it can be something like, somebody who is funny, a great sense of humor, someone who is a good storyteller,
as well,
Yeah. So you can see on number 3, things are important, but they're not that much.
Yeah.
It's gonna add a cherry on top.
Yeah.
On you if you have it.
It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But,
Then the important things, these are important. They will increase your score sheet. And obviously there is deal breakers. These ones you're gonna be off. So each individual must have, and those things can differ. Some people feel very strongly on certain issues to the extent that they can be deal breaker, whereas to somebody else it's a nice to have. So how you feel and your own comfort zone, and it's determined by that.
Thank you.
Sure.
The next question, it's actually not really a marriage question only. It's how to listen to learn what is said versus what I hear. So communication, basically.
Yeah. Listening it's a critical part of communication. We often say that being able to talk is a physical ability, but communication, it's an art, it's a science, something that you must learn.
Sure.
Again, when we talk about listening, there's a difference between hearing and listening. Hearing is a physical ability. So if you have got the ability, you're a person, you're not deaf, you will hear the noise, the decibels of noise getting into your ear. You will hear them. But listening, it's an art, it's a science. It's something that you can learn, you can improve, And so when we talk about issues of listening, and for example is that you can be in a taxi rank and there's noise around, somebody's shouting there to which direction, to whatever, but you're listening to this person, not the ones who are there. So listening has to do with paying attention, and when you pay attention, you look at body movements. So that's why eye contact is important. You look at body movements. What is this person communicating with their body, with their hands, with their eyes? And you're paying attention. Now, in fact, listening is such an important issue to the extent that listening by its nature is therapy.
Sure.
So when you listen to someone, you're actually giving the person a therapy. It's a therapy session. So many people come to me as a counselor. Usually when they come alone, when they've got problems, whether it's a marriage or relationship problems, many people think that they're coming so that you can solve their problems. But often they're coming to be heard.
Yeah.
Because there are things that are bottling in, they're talking to themselves, they're almost losing their mind. And they get to someone who listens, pays attention. And by listening, you validate a person. You are saying you are normal, you are okay, it's fine. And any advice that you give, it's over and above the therapy you've given in just listening. So it's critical in a relationship that you give therapy to each other. So let's talk about a boyfriend or a girlfriend. You've been having a stressful day at work. No, this has been happening, this is happening. You want somebody who can sit down and listen. But not only that, even issues of your conflict, even issues that you're unhappy about. Because if you think about it, the critical thing is that if I don't listen to you, how would I know the things that matters to you? Those things that matters to you. So the idea of listening is critical in building up of a relationship.
Yeah.
And you often see most people when they're arguing, they don't listen to each other. When two people are arguing, what they do, one speaks while the other one is speaking, the other one is planning their own counter argument.
Yeah.
So they're not listening. And that's why they keep on going backward and forward.
Yeah.
And each of them is repeating what they've said in other words because they know they're not listening to what they're saying, and that's why it escalates into a heat. But if I care enough, particularly in a love relationship, the most important thing for me should be to listen, because it is in listening where your desires, your needs, your feelings, I will understand and be able to meet them better. So it is something that anyone who enters into a relationship must learn the science of listening.
And it's also a thing of, people feel like you care about them, especially when you listen, not just hear. I heard an example that you once said in a seminar that you can be like on your computer, and then someone comes and says, yo, I need this and this, and then you go, okay, but you're still looking at the computer. They've answered your question, but they were hearing you, not listening to you. Because what could happen, what you could have done is you like step away from the computer and you look directly at the person and be like, listening to the person. The person that's asking the question feels that you're hearing, you're listening to what I'm saying, and that you care.
Sure. Definitely.
No, thank you.
Sure.
Next question. You might as well be preparing answer for questions around blended families and the role of the other set of parents. For example, she is a child, so do I. She has a child, so do I. How do we handle her baby daddy and my baby mama in a civil manner that doesn't threaten the security of our family, and how that works for the kids? Basically, step parenting.
Okay, so before we go to baby mamas and baby daddies, if we look into step parenting by its nature is a challenge. Okay, parenting by its nature is not easy. It's a challenge, right? Parenting your own children is not easy. There are many who are failing in parenting their own children. A subject for another day. But let's zoom into step parenting. Step parenting, you are trying to get into the shoes of parenting where the child. Okay, let's do this. Step parenting happens either the parents are divorced or somebody has died and they remarry again. In the business of remarrying, the father and the mother, the two of them, they meet each other and they love each other and they get married. The children are not involved in the choice of who will become their stepfather or their stepmother. So by default, they automatically have a choice given to them. And this person who is chosen to become a stepmother or stepfather, who is going to be overlooking your life, living in the same house with you, you were not involved in choosing what type of a person it is. And that type of a person can be somebody totally different from what you expected. You can almost imagine, because if people were divorced, particularly divorced, somebody is trying to get somebody different from their previous spouses. So it's actually different from what you actually had experienced in your life before. So it is therefore important in step parenting that step parenting, you don't rush ahead. You slowly go into that role. So as a stepfather or a stepmother, you need to earn the right to become a mother and a father. Whereas when we are born in families, automatically the father and mother have got the right to become father and mother. So they're sorry. But in step parenting, the children might be resistant and they will only allow you in because you have earned it. I always talk about, issues of leadership in the family, whether it's earned or deserved. The same thing can be said about parenting. Is it earned or deserved? For first parents, it is deserved. I brought you to earth. You are my child. Behave. But in step parenting, I don't know you. I don't know where you come from. I have my own feelings and attitude. So don't expect me, and that's number one. Don't expect forced children to call the stepmother or a stepfather daddy or mommy. These children, depending on the age, they still know who their daddy and their mommy is. In some cases. And so don't force them. Let the daddy and the mommy earn the right.
Yeah.
And when they earn the right to be a daddy and the mommy, then you can call them, they will be called daddies or mommy. So they slowly get into the role. Right? And I was talking to a young lady some time ago, and she was telling me that she's got such a strong bond with her stepfather. That the bond is so strong that her mother has divorced the stepfather, and she still has a bond with the stepfather, more than even her own father, that she later found out, because he stepped in for real. Because if you think about stepmother and stepfather, it is you step in when the father step out, step in when the mother step out. So, and in this case, he was a real stepfather. He stepped in and he became the father, and because of that, she had a bond with him. So even when she's dealing with things now as a young adult, she still talks to the stepfather because he's the father figure and not the real father. So it is important. Number two, when we are dealing with the issues of stepchildren, because this is what happens. This is your step parent comes from here, your real parent is here. In order to create a balance, the real parent must be responsible for disciplining, and the step parent must be responsible for rewards.
Yeah.
So the one who is the step parent is away from discipline, leave the discipline out. And when the parent is doing the discipline, he is given the rewards. If the rewards is to go and buy you ice cream, to go and buy you clothes and whatever, those things are done by the step. So you see the step stepping up.
Yeah.
While the real parent is almost like stepping down, right, to get to the level to together. Because so if you've got a step parent who immediately got into a family and he starts wanting to be disciplined, he steps down further. And I had a situation where a man married a woman. The parent says that the wife, the father had died of these boys. There were 2 teenage boys, and they were not of the same faith. And suddenly they came to church. They were coming with their mother to church, but after church they were busy doing their video games and all kinds of things. And he was very harsh on them. How dare you do this? This is the day of worship. This is whatever. You can't do this. Yeah. And he kept on doing further. And even though the relationship was okay, the two of them, because of this, it broke down. So he was stepping further down instead of stepping up. Right. So it is important that is considered. And thirdly, what makes the relationship, which is the same also in a normal marriage, is how tight the two of them are. You see, the two must be one. Because even in normal parenting, children will try to divide the parents.
You'll be like, no, but mommy said this.
Yes. Yeah, but daddy said I can do it. And all of those things. So they can. So it's worse than a step parenting. So this movement, this thing must be so strong that even if the children are trying to shake it, they cannot be shaken. So that's the issue of step parenting. So obviously the issue of baby mamas and baby daddies, it is critical that it be addressed in a standard way. On say, how do we relate with them? What is the relationship that we deal with them? How much time or space do we give into their relationship? I was just dealing with a situation recently of somebody who felt that the baby daddy is too close to his fiance or to his girlfriend. They do things together, they chat and do all of those things, and so there must be standards, ways of agreeing. How do we handle them? How do we relate with them in a standard way?
No, thank you. If you're just joining us now, welcome to the Living Power Show. We're doing a question and answer session. You're joined by a special guest here, Mashudu Ravhengani, and your host, Thendo Ravhengani. Continuing with the questions. This is a very interesting question. Let's talk about hypergamy. So you say it right? Hypergamy. And its dynamics. Now, we got this off Facebook, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So someone commented under this question that I'm glad you asked this. We need to discuss this in depth. But in summary, it is the approach that women use when it comes to relationships, where they always aim higher regardless of their situation. E.g., for example, every woman wants a high-value man, whether she beautiful or not. That's where you get it. I don't date broke guys thing. In essence, hypergamy is a game for women, and since we are raised in a geocentric, female-based society, very few men know women's pick game / artistry. That was a mouthful. Hopefully you got all of that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it is only a women's game.
Yeah. Definitely.
I suppose in life in general, we want to get more for every rand that we have. I want my rent to go further than it usually is. So whether I'm buying groceries or whether I am buying a car or a computer, and this is how we are trapped by something called sale.
Yeah.
Because sale suggests that you are getting more for less. And so this game, which in this case is saying the women like to play, yes, it is true. It's the nature of humans to get more than what they think they deserve, and setting themselves up for what they believe is a more via man, whatever. And this kind of mentality has obviously led to unfortunate things, where relationships have almost become prostituted on money, because love has become a commodity that is being sold out there. And out of that we find issues like bless us, because the guy has got more, and when he has got more, he's one who is more attractive. They might not be there yet, and because they are not there yet, I don't feel that I can date such kind of people. So it is a challenge that we find in life and in our life. But it is important for us to be realistic on what we need in life, because one's character, not their standing in society, not their profession, not their money. If we were measuring this idea not on materialistic values, but measuring it on character content, then it will make more sense that all of us, and I often argue to young people that 80% of your qualification for a partner or a spouse must be the fear of God. So if that 80% is what is being used to look for what is higher, for what is better, that would make much more sense. But unfortunately, it's materialistic issues that are brought into bear. Materialistic things are the ones that are used as a measure in terms of success or failure, which is unfortunate.
That's interesting. I've never heard the term hypergamy in my life. I thought hypergamy was polygamy on steroids. I had no idea. Now, this is a bit of a mad question. Dating single mothers, since there is a lot of them now. What? That's literally the question.
Yeah. I suppose just a quick one on that one will be that when you look into dating, particularly somebody who is a single mother with children, I always argue that it is important not to look at her as just an individual. If you say, I love her, I love how she looks, I love her qualification, whatever, look at her as a package. Her together with the child, her together with the children. The question is that if this relationship is going to work, the man needs to have enough love that covers not just only her, but the package that she brings, which is the package of a children or a child that she must have. So sometimes it's almost like the man who will look into loving the woman out of her commitment of being a parent. You know? And the question is, if you don't have enough love to love her as a package holistically, then leave her alone. So if she's a single woman, you must know that you are not a guy who is struggling on love. You've got enough to love her, and also whatever the strings that she has attached. You know, in Chivenda there's a saying that if you pull a pumpkin, thing, the little pumpkins attached to them will come together. Pumpkin tree, all the attached will come together. So you can't say, I'm going to pull just only this pumpkin string, whatever it is called. The rest of the little pumpkins will come together. That means I love everything else that is attached to it, and I embrace that. And and that is what will make that relationship to succeed and to be able to make it.
No, thank you. So these are technically two questions that I want to pose to you. First one is, what do I do when my partner doesn't feel like talking? Mad. And then the next question, I just want to put it out there, is cell phone. How to manage it in marriage. So in terms of your partner not talking to you, he could be on his phone and so forth. So how do you deal with the fact that your partner's not talking to you, first of all?
I suppose not talking is a problem. But maybe the real problem is why the person is not talking. You see, if the partner is not talking to you, this assumption is that you used to talk. You see, there are people who naturally don't talk much. They're just not talking much. There might be more action people. I don't think that's what we're addressing here. I think what we're addressing here is a situation where, for whatever reason, your partner is not talking. That's what we also call silent treatment.
Yeah, he doesn't feel like talking.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like, it's silent treatment. It's almost like a kind of a punishment, or it's like a protest that I'm not going to talk to you for whatever. Now, maybe there's been a communication breakdown, maybe there's been a hurt, maybe there's been a disappointment for which the other person is put in prison to serve a sentence. Sometimes for a few hours, sometimes for a few days, until I'm going to be able to talk to you again after this has happened. Right? But, the Bible says, speak the truth in love. The first thing is to speak. Most people will rather prefer a conflict or a debate more than to silent treatment.
Yeah.
They would rather engage in little argument, than silent. Because you see, silent treatment is an argument, but you just don't know what the argument is saying because there's no words that are expressed. So it's an argument. So it's like the other one is saying, and so you don't know You don't even know whether your response is also the right response.
It's
the right thing.
So it's the funniest thing where people are giving each other silent treatment, but they need something from the other person.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah, exactly. It's like they're gonna do a sign language. In fact, there was a story of people who were not talking, a couple that was taking. It's an old story. So because they're not talking, they decide to write a piece of paper to each other. So when they were going to sleep, the woman wrote a piece of paper. Please wake me up at 5 so that I can prepare for work, and put the note next to him. And indeed, because the guy wakes up early, he woke up at 5, and he wrote on the note, put next to her, wake up. So you can see what a communication breakdown, what a silent treatment has resulted in. And she woke up and she's angry and says, "Why didn't you tell me? No. I asked you to wake me up." I said, No, there it is. Right there. I put that thing at 5 o'clock to say, wake up, and you should have woken up at that time, because that's what I have done. So that's what we're finding. So it is important that people rather argue it out and talk it out. And also the other problem with issues of silent treatment is the fact that mushroom grow in the dark. So silence creates darkness, and evil thoughts or negative thoughts mushrooms in that darkness. So
that was Mashudu Ravhengani, proudly brought to you by Living Power Ministries. You can find us at livingpower.org.za or on WhatsApp at +27 78 215 5737. Living Power, empowering mankind to unleash its full potential.